Ready or Not is one of those games that sticks with you long after you play it. Everything from the gameplay to the environments that we come across come together to form an experience that genuinely hurts you. I'd even go as far to say that most players will come across a point in this game that causes them to stop and reflect, forcing them to think about whatever horrible thing that they've managed to bump into this time. Now, for many of us, this will be the school shooting or the terrorist attack levels, because comparatively, these are probably the most shocking missions that we'll play. But there's another storyline in this game that often goes unappreciated, and it's really a shame because, in my opinion, it shows one of the greatest depictions of betrayal that I've ever seen. I'm of course talking about the sad story of the Left Behind. Now, for those of you who haven't seen my previous video, the Left Behind are a group comprised of US military veterans. They're men who have seen extensive combat and have fought for both the United States government and what it represents. Essentially, these are men who love their country. They have sacrificed pieces of themselves to ensure that the US remains whole. However, after returning back home and trying to settle into normal lives, the US government decided to eliminate nearly all of their military benefits. Most notable of these being a huge cut to VA hospital funding. This cut would mean that the majority of these veterans would go without health care. Injuries and conditions that they had suffered while protecting their country would go untreated, and the very government that they had fought so hard to protect would turn its back on them. Rather than accept this fate lying down though, the veterans got active. The men quickly mobilized and gathered their weapons, and then set their sights on the very senator that proposed this legislation, Cornelius Fremont. The group attempts an assassination on the senator, planning to snipe him at one of his rallies. But the attack fails, as the senator is only grazed by their bullet. And now, the only man that the Left Behind were after is completely out of their reach. Now, in my last video, I sort of spoke about how I empathized for these troops. And while I didn't agree with their methods, I could understand where they were coming from. These men felt betrayed and were acting out of desperation. But after this failed assassination attempt, something would snap. The group would quickly become much more volatile and much less reasonable. And we'd see this in full effect not even 24 hours later. After visiting their father at the hospital, Senator Fremont's family returned back to their penthouse at the luxurious Clemente Hotel. Since the events yesterday, they've all been under close supervision from their Secret Service detail. Now, naturally, because of this, you'd like to think that they'd be safe from some sort of follow-up attack, but that couldn't be further from the truth. While out for a late-night skating session, one of the senator's sons, Michael, noticed a group of heavily armed men working their way up the hotel's fire escape. While he wasn't exactly sure how many men there were, he did know that the situation was about to get dangerous, so he quickly notified the hotel's security staff before making his way up to the 14th floor to warn his family. To make matters even worse though, we receive a call from the head of the hotel's security staff, informing us that shots have been fired somewhere on one of the upper levels. In our briefing, we can also see a photo from the elevator's CCTV camera, which shows a large number of Secret Service agents exiting the elevator right around the time shots were reported to have been fired. And not really having enough time to further analyze the situation, we're forced to make our way to the hotel without any other information. Now, Sins of the Father is probably one of my all-time favorite missions, solely from the variety of infiltration points that we can use. The game gives us the option of starting in the hotel's main elevator, on a balcony connected to a common area, or on the roof of the building. Each of these connect to vastly different areas of the map and create a unique run for each infiltration point. Personally though, I prefer to start on the roof because the rain in this map is super aesthetically pleasing. So for now, let's start there. When we work our way off the roof and down the fire escape, we'll oftentimes find ourselves coming under fire from some of the nearby windows. Now, on the fire escape, we don't really have any cover at all. So rather than sitting out in the open and trying to return fire, we quickly rush our way inside via the nearest door. Once inside the hotel, we'll find ourselves standing in front of two branching hallways, and laying on the floor in front of us is a motionless bellhop who has been shot dead by one of the intruders. With this, it's immediately clear that the perpetrators of this attack are out for blood. The Left Behind doesn't care who gets in their way anymore. They're just taking their anger out on everything in front of them. The men aren't even trying to go after the root of their problems anymore. They're attacking his family. It seems that now they're less concerned with getting the legislation changed and are more worried about sending the US a message. In essence, this is what happens when you cross the people that protect you. This message will take on a whole nother level of irony though, because we'll quickly find out that the attackers here aren't just some random veterans, they're actually members of Senator Fremont's Secret Service team. The very men who have sworn their lives to protect him have turned their backs on him, just as he turned his back on veterans. It's also worth noting that many of these Secret Service agents are veterans themselves, as in our mission briefing it reads, quote, "These individuals have a deep, obscure history of overseas clandestine operations for various military branches. Essentially, these are men who have done the US's dirty work for years, and now that they've returned back home and joined the Secret Service, the very man that they had promised to protect has made it his priority to rob them of what they rightfully deserve. However, nothing can excuse these men for the horrific actions that we'll watch them commit later." As we continue our way through the hotel, we'll come across some of the different family members' rooms. In the boys' room, we can see Michael's skateboard and a skating magazine. It seems that he may have actually been able to reach his room before things finally took a turn for the worse. On a nearby table sits a laptop with a news article pulled up. The story talks about the assassination attempt on the senator that we saw the previous day. It looks like Michael was curious why this had happened to his dad and had looked up an article explaining this event. Next to all of this is a small couch with a pillow and a blanket, as well as an additional laptop and a game console. These appear to be the belongings of the youngest son of the Fremont family, Jock, who is noted in our briefing as having a very deep interest in video games. In the room across from this, we can find the daughter, Belle's room. Inside, there is a purse, a cell phone, and a laptop with some messages on it. It reads, "Johnny, where are you? I haven't seen you in a week. You aren't responding to me. In Mexico." "What the hell do you mean in Mexico?" "Shit went down not long ago. Won't be back." "But what about us?" "Shit happens." It seems that before this attack unfolded, Belle was getting her heart broken by this Johnny character. On her character model, you can actually see the runny mascara from where she had been crying, which is just an insane detail. Further down the hall, we can find the mother's room, and here we see 3 small sleeping arrangements have been made. On a nearby table, we can see a phone with a strange voicemail on it that has been left by the recovering senator.
"Lucia, where are you? I've been trying to call you for a while now. I don't have much time to talk. The agent protecting me just left to use the bathroom. Listen to me very carefully. You and the kids need to call my contact at the NSA and get... sorry, I lost track of what I was saying. Yes. Oh, right. Listen to me carefully. Do you remember verse Luke 22:1-6? Whenever I'm scared, I think of this because it reminds me to put all my trust in God. I hope this verse finds you well."
It seems that the senator was in the middle of trying to warn his wife about the next attack, but just as he began to mention it, he was interrupted by one of the men on his security team. Instead of continuing to talk about this though, the senator completely changes the subject, suspicious that his security team might be in on it. Now, I'm not too sure how Senator Fremont was able to determine that his Secret Service detail might be acting against him. Perhaps this contact with the NSA is the one who alerted him to it in the first place, but for the time being, we can't be too certain. Something else interesting worth mentioning is that this Bible verse that the senator spits out is just another covert way of him warning his wife about a potential attack. Luke 22:1-6 discusses Judas, one of Jesus' closest friends, plotting trying to betray him. In our briefing, Senator Fremont's wife is described as being a real Bible thumper, so him sharing this chapter with her, knowing that only she would really know it off the top of her head, is an incredibly clever way to convey this message. On the same table as the phone, we can see a rosary and a piece of paper where the wife has written a prayer. In the nearby closet, we can find another piece of paper, this time a note written by the son Alex, which reads, "Ira, going for a run, honey. It's raining, but I'll bring a jacket. Take care of Mom, Alex." Now, personally, I think that going for a jog at night in the pouring rain just before your family gets attacked by a group of armed men is just a smidge suspicious. However, we can later find Alex with a busted nose being held hostage by the attackers. So it seems that even if he had known about the attack, he wasn't able to protect himself anyways. That rant aside though, we can head downstairs and continue to investigate the building. Downstairs we'll see a giant golden eagle and a room surrounded by portraits of prominent politicians. Here we can see the elevator that the men arrived on, and on the floor next to it we can see Michael's phone and headphones next to a trail of blood. On this same floor we'll also see a small theater, a bathroom, and a kitchen, but most notably is the penthouse's bar. Here we can see the primary operating point that the Secret Service agents had been using, as there are crates of weapons and ammunition all over the place. We can also see a camera placed facing out of the window, likely as a means of surveillance. Most interestingly though, we can find one of the agents' cell phones open on the nearby table, and here we can read the following text exchange. "I just put the kids to bed. Can you talk? Not tonight. OPSEC stuff. Lots going down." "Okay, that's fair. I'll see you in a few days?" "Probably. I don't think it's going to happen again." "I saw that Fremont survived." "He did. I packed his wound myself. They missed his heart by a few inches." We can also see that another message was in the process of being typed here, indicating that the agent who was texting was interrupted by the attack. Now what this suggests to us is that not all of Fremont's Secret Service team were out to hurt him. Some of his men were genuinely acting in his best interests. It's sort of confusing to make this out at first, since all of the agents that we bump into are hostile, but this is what seems to be the case here. Anyways though, we'll eventually come upon the crux of this attack in the common room. Here we'll find the word dishonor written above the fireplace, and beneath it are multiple chairs bound with rope. And upon finding this scene, we can hear a rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner play on the nearby sound system. It seems that these men had planned to gather the members of Senator Fremont's family and put them on display to the world before executing them on a live stream. This is how far these men were willing to go. They were completely fine with making themselves monsters and murdering innocent civilians so long as they hurt the man that hurt them. After making this discovery, we're eventually able to apprehend the rest of the rogue security team, and with that, we can head back to the station for debrief. After my completion of this level, I was a bit dumbfounded by what had occurred. In my first video, I had initially thought that the Left Behind were just a group of guys that got rightfully upset at some legislation. And with the furthering of that bill, they grew more and more extreme until they finally made an attempt on Senator Fremont's life. But this attack reveals to us what they truly are. They are a far-reaching, highly coordinated group of extremists that have no qualms over murdering innocent people so long as it helps them further their own agenda. They are the very definition of domestic terrorists. And while at first we could sort of sympathize with these men and what they were going through, now we can see them for the extremists that they truly are. It's a bit disturbing how close this plan came to fruition. These men almost killed an entire family and live streamed it just to send a message to Senator Fremont. It's crazy, and it only goes to show the awful state that the world is in during the events of Ready or Not. In conclusion though, I'm not too sure what's next for the Left Behind. After 2 consecutive attacks like this, Senator Fremont and his family are likely to be placed under heavy government supervision. The Secret Service is likely to perform a massive internal investigation, so they can rid themselves of any remaining sleeper agents. And the government's investigative agencies are likely to crack down heavily on the Left Behind after this. The Fremont family is very rich and very, very powerful. And I doubt that the powers that be would simply take these attacks lying down. And while wealth and status shouldn't be a prerequisite for receiving justice, that certainly is the case in Los Sueños. Only time will tell what will happen next in this storyline though. And while we may have seen the last of the Left Behind for now, it's only a matter of time before another extremist takes their place. And next time, their reasoning might hit a little closer to home than we'd expect. I'd love to hear your all's thoughts on this mission though. Was it as eerie for you as it was for me? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'd also like to give a shout out to all of my wonderful channel members and patrons. Cosmonaut, Asterix762, Za, CrankyBox99, Caillou, Alexander, Neostank, and Tori Hunter. Thank you guys so much for all of your love and support. It really does mean the world to me. With all of that stuff being said though, as always, thank you so much for watching today's video. You know I love you. I'm out.